Hi, what can I get you?
Hi.
Just the usual. Some adhesion proteins and von Willebrand factor then. That's exactly what I mean. Hey, I brought a friend. No, not him as well. What's wrong with him? He just induces the regulation of some antiviral proteins.
You don't understand. Your synergetic activation will cause me to regulate all kinds of cell death proteins, from pyroptosis to panoptosis. I'll be devoid of any von Willebrand factor, and my tight junctions are completely gone.
No, I didn't know.
Is there anything we can do to save you?
There's nothing you can do. I'm doomed.
Who are you?
I am Itacitinib of the Order of Janus Kinase Inhibitors, and I'm here to save the day.
I'm not inflamed anymore. It's working. You're even getting your von Willebrand factor back. I feel so much better. Well, thank you so much. Oh, you saved my life. Yes. Oh, we did it.
Yay!
Woo. Yay!
Let's go. Yay! Woo.
You saved my life.
Let's go.
Yes. Oh, we did it.
Party time! Yeah! Yay! Woo! Yay! Let's just talk about inhibiting synergetic endothelial inflammation. Before we start, some background. There are several systemic vascular disorders with an inflammatory component, such as sepsis, COVID, or CAR-T-induced cytokine release syndrome, but as well graft versus host disease, that have elevated levels of TNF-alpha and interferon gamma. Now recently, we have also seen that in endothelial cells, a combination of these cytokines leads to this synergetic hyperinflammation. Now, since these systemic vascular disorders often lead to multi-organ failure, and the endothelial cell is present in all organs, is there any merit to blocking this synergetic inflammation in the endothelial cell? Well, let's find out. First, we have to pick some inhibitors. Now, TNF-alpha inflammation goes through the NF-kappa-B axis, while interferon gamma inflammation is mostly driven by the JAK-STAT axis. So we picked 7 inhibitors downstream of these pathways. We culture our endothelial cells in here, in this 96 well plate to be exact, and then we expose them to the different cytokine stimuli, and as well add the panel of the 7 inhibitors. So we use 3 concentrations per inhibitor, and we need 3 replicates per condition, so we actually need 3 of these plates. And then we expose them for 24 hours. So after 24 hours we lyse our samples, and we bring them up here in the wet lab, where we do the triptych digestion overnight. After that we load them on some Evo tips, so they are ready to run on the mass spec. So this is the mass spec in question, a timsTOF HT coupled to an EvoSep, and this allows us to screen high throughput. So the 396 well plates were ran at 60 samples a day, which means that the total acquisition time for the 288 samples was less than 5 days. And that is quite impressive. Out of the 7 inhibitors tested, 3 had an effect on the inflammation markers, which were STAT6 inhibitor AS, IKK2 STAT3 inhibitor TPCA1, and JAK1 inhibitor itacitinib. However, this is an endothelial monolayer in steady state. And this is an endothelial monolayer when you combine it with the STAT6 inhibitor. So yes, inflammation markers are down with this inhibitor, but there's also barely any endothelial cell left. To this end, we did not include the STAT6 inhibitor for further analysis. Now, out of the 208 proteins regulated by combined stimulation, the majority was actually inhibited by either TPCA1 or itacitinib. Then there are some proteins that are only inhibited by either TPCA or by itacitinib. And finally, there's a small selection, 14 proteins that are not completely downregulated by either inhibitor. Now, if you look at some of the proteins that are inhibited by both inhibitors, we can see, for example, these pyroptosis proteins, and we can see that almost all chemokines are completely inhibited by either inhibitor. And finally here, angiopoietin 2 and von Willebrand factor are also attuned by this inhibitor. As von Willebrand factor is an important component of inflammation and hemostasis in our vasculature, let's look at this a bit more. So this is an endothelial monolayer in steady state with von Willebrand factor in green. Now if you add TNF-alpha and interferon gamma, you get quite an extreme phenotype. So alpha von Willebrand factor is now on top of the cell in sort of this blanket, stringy network-like fashion. And also the cells contain barely any bivalpolade bodies, which are the organelles in which von Willebrand factor is stored. Now the good thing is, if we add both TPCA or itacitinib, then you can see that it mostly reverts to the steady state phenotype, where we see bivalpolade bodies again and this long stringy network is gone, which suggests that the inhibition is indeed working. So can we inhibit a synergetic inflammation in the endothelium? Well, for the most part we can, yes. Most proteins are completely downregulated upon TPCA or itacitinib. However, we should be careful in translating this to what happens in our body, because what happens in a dish is completely different. Interestingly, a recent phase 2 clinical trial was concluded using itacitinib in CAR-T-induced cytokine release syndrome. Now, this syndrome is also hallmarked by elevated levels of TNF-alpha and interferon gamma. So does a study provide a mechanistic basis for this by blocking endothelial synergetic inflammation? Well, it's potentially part of it. So those are some of the findings from this study. Now there's a bit more to it, but at this point we have not submitted the paper yet. So who knows when you can read this entire story. For now, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and have a wonderful day.